friends.
Hi.
So, when Sam invited me to participate in this event, I immediately said yes. And then immediately got scared because I didn't know what I was going to talk about. He asked me a few questions, and one of the questions that stood out the most was, as a young, gay kid, do you feel like you got bad sex advice, like bad sex ed? And my immediate answer to that was, well, not necessarily. Because when I was in middle school, this would have been like 1990, 91. I grew up in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, not Virginia. That's not the one that I recognize. And so, growing up Eastern North Carolina, it's, like the late 80s, early 90s, and I had this memory of a PE class where we got divided by sex, and the boys were in one room and the girls were in the other room, and we got our own PE teachers in each room, and they gave everybody really terrible information because it was all abstinence based, right? Like it was so you're in front of like a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds. Hormones are just raging through their body. Puberty is hitting them like a drunk elephant, and you're just telling them, oh, don't touch each other. And probably don't touch yourselves either. That shit don't work. It just doesn't work. We had, pregnant classmates and everything. We're like, yeah, this isn't working. No. So, based on that, I knew that my answer was sort of, well, I can't really say that I got bad sex advice about being a young queer teen, because everybody in my generation got bad advice. Yeah. So I actually felt really included. Which kind of did good. So I, got just really bad advice at school, but I also got just some weird advice at home, because the next memory that came to mind was, I'll back up a little bit. So I have a memory of being, I think, 13. I was a Boy Scout, and my dad was driving me to one of our troop meetings, and I'm in the back seat. There's a tape in the car that's playing a really terrible cover of I Know What Boys Like by the Waitresses. I'm singing along. My dad isn't. So, get to the chorus, I know what boys like, I know what guys like, everything, and my dad just kind of sort of takes in this sharp intake of breath and just looks in the rearview mirror and just has a long thought. He sort of goes off for a moment, and then he comes back. Doesn't really say anything. A few years later, he sits me down for the briefest, most awkward birds and the bees talk that you can imagine. I think he actually tried to use the metaphor of birds and bees, which also super fucking confusing. I don't remember most of what he said, but I do remember his recommendation that I don't put my penis in another man's butt, and don't let that happen to me. At the time, that had not occurred to me. This is new territory. I might take bad advice, but really, mostly, I'm going to file that away and think about it for the rest of my life. By the time I was was 14 or so, my parents bought me my first internet-capable computer, which in like 93, 94 was, I mean, it's like trying to watch a movie on a rock. It's just not super great. But one of the things that I tried to do was in being introduced to the internet, I was like, oh, here's this great resource. There's all these questions I have. There's all these things that I can find out. I can just like go deep into the internet and learn everything I want to know about Star Trek, because that's what I was interested in at that time, and still am. But one of the other things that I could learn about was just like other gay people. I could like connect to, you know, just other gay people and figure out like what are people doing? What is this thing that my dad told me about like a couple years ago that I'm super confused about? How can I get more information? Where's your pamphlet? So, in that exploration, I, you know, go onto these like message boards and discussion forums and everything, and end up discovering this friendship with a person who at least presented themselves to be a 15-year-old kid, but in 1993, who the fuck knows? It's just text. So we proceed to become these pen pals. So I'm talking about like my life in North Carolina, he's talking about his life in like Florida or wherever he was from. And we start sending each other these stories. So we basically are creating like custom erotica, which is whatever comes out of our mind, and we send it to the other person as this testing ground. It's like, hey, I thought of this. Is this weird? Like, is this cool? You know, is this exciting? Is this possible? Which ended up being like my first real bit of like gay sex ed, which was this super like DIY custom sort of thing. And that's what I think is like super exciting, right? Because in the midst, in the absence of all of this stuff, that I was able to find this like this do-it-yourself sexuality thing, which is also what I find like super exciting about sexuality just in general. Like, we can all do that. It's like just like one big great crazy Pinterest that we can fill with whatever we like. So that's what I came up with my stories. So pin this shit to your boards, because